The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed on Leadership Lounge Live are for entertainment and informational purposes only. They do not reflect the official policies, beliefs, or positions of any individuals, organizations, or platforms mentioned. Viewer discretion is advised, and we encourage independent research and critical thinking. Enjoy the conversation and engage responsibly.
The Leadership Lounge.
All right, welcome back to Leadership Lounge Live, where I am your host. Tonight we have got another special guest. He lives and breathes educational leadership. Chris is the principal at Jordan Elementary and has led schools across the country from South Carolina to Indiana to Chicago with a foundation in music. And as an interventionist, he brings a creative, student-centered approach to every role. Chris is all about an equity-driven leadership approach, building cultural responsive learning spaces, and empowering students, staff, and families to shape the future together. He's also a doctoral candidate working to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline, all while keeping two dogs entertained on the weekends. My goodness, let's welcome Chris to the show.
Hey,
Chris,
everyone.
how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I probably should have updated that. I finished that doctorate a couple of years ago, so I probably should have updated that bio for
Oh
you.
my gosh. Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks, yeah.
Still got the two dogs.
Yeah, we actually have a third one now. We foster now, like pretty consistently. I think we're on our 7th foster dog. So we have 2 of our own and then the third one usually until we find their forever home. We kind of just give them a boot camp for a few weeks.
On. Yeah. Well, as always, we've got both of our co-hosts here this week, Mr. Uriah and Miss Adama. How are you both this week?
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Doing
well. Chris, thank you so much for coming in this week. I wonder if you can talk about what inspired you to step into leadership and start tackling those big equity challenges beyond the classroom.
Yeah, I think about that a lot, like what made me go into this. And when you mention what made me go into leadership plus equity, those two things are like very intertwined. One, I remember being an early career teacher and seeing a lot of issues across my school, and every school I've worked in has had issues. Like that wasn't the unique part. It was that I felt like the issues weren't really being dealt with. And I thought, well, I'm not going to complain about something or vent about something and then not do anything about it. So I, work from within my school to try to make it better. And as a music teacher, I got my little corner of the universe. But I figured, well, if I go into school leadership, then I can impact every kid in the school and do my very best to try to make their education experience better. And then also from an equity perspective, like I had a great experience growing up. I went to blue ribbon schools in the suburbs of Detroit. And then it hit me when I graduated college and realized, oh, not everybody had the kind of experience I did. And that's not right. When I had like a silver trumpet and private music lessons, like I just took it for granted. Like it's just how I was raised. And I thought, well, this isn't right. If I had this experience and others don't have those same opportunities, something's wrong. Something's broken in the system. So it's kind of been my mission ever since of try to do what I can within my own building, but then a lot of advocacy outward. I'm very involved in the principals union, just in leadership across Chicago public schools. And I'm very active online trying to spread whatever I learn. Hopefully it's helpful for others too. So that's just kind of the baseline of it. There's a lot more I could say, but that's where my heart's at.
Awesome. Adama, what you got?
I was trying not to jump straight to the guzzler because he has like your background knowledge and the education is so phenomenally beautiful. I love when we have educators come on, and I love learning about the different parts of it. My question is, when I'm going to jump right in, y'all, with AI, now being so heavily in everything we do, like that, that power outage I said power outage, the outage that we have with AI, it let me know the number of people that use it and how kids in school and students in college were suffering because it went down.
Yeah.
What, how did it take you by surprise when you started, AI has already been around, but when you started realizing how big it's becoming and how reachable it's becoming to people?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's the obvious sliver within the entire what's possible with AI of like plagiarism side, right? Just the generating content and using it to like hack your own education in some way for good, bad, or ugly. But to your point, I mean, we use AI in education probably for the past at least 10 years that we didn't call it that. We called it adaptive learning. We called it blended learning, where you're using technology to supplement what the teacher is teaching. And when kids are using these apps, if you have kids or you have nieces and nephews like I do, in addition to the kids at school, I see my nieces and nephews all the time. And I can tell sometimes, that app, they got a question wrong. It gives them this question. They get it right. It gives them a more challenging one. Like that kind of stuff is very adaptive, and certain aspects of that are AI. That's what we've had for like 10 plus years. It's the, artificial generation of content, large language models. That's what's taken us by storm in the past couple of years. And I think it's obvious to say we're all still figuring it out. We understand, and I'm going to be leading professional development with my staff again this year, where we're looking at how can you use AI to make some of the parts of your job that took a lot of cognitive energy to lessen that cognitive load there, because you're going to need to use that cognitive energy somewhere else. So unit planning, brainstorming, ways to deliver content to students, stuff like that, where you're just trying to ideate and generate ideas. And then you're still going to have to be the one implementing it as a teacher or as an administrator. But I was just tinkering with the other day about automated note taking. I mean, it's very possible, but we also have limited access in our district of what things. So, but it is absolutely something that I think college professors and high school teachers are grappling with, the plagiarism side of things way more than we are at the elementary level. And most of my students don't even really use AI much. Like we're finding ways to use it as opposed to trying to find ways to shut it down. But there's a lot that's going on in this space. And if we don't figure it out, we're doing a disservice to students, because, letting them outsource everything to ChatGPT is not, a due diligence instructional model. So, but ask me again in a year, and they have a wildly different answer.
That was a awesome answer, because I love how you said that. And I also love that I heard, because you have the younger part of the elementary part. I love, because I can also see where the productivity part can come in from, where I guess, and I love how you said you're going to be meeting with your team and your staff. I love, because it's like there's so many ways to integrate that and get more knowledge and work with it than to have it. That's what I heard when you were talking.
Yeah.
Like you're working with it than to have it falsely give you, I can't stand when people like put all their answers like, well, ChatGPT told me to do this, instead of integrating and working with it. And I love how that's what your answer resonated in me, like structure and productivity and learning.
Yeah.
I just love that. So thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely noticing that. I think in a lot of industries, I can speak for education. I can't speak for like, medicine or engineering or something, that it's not going to make our lives easier overall. I don't think it'll make aspects of our work easier. But then what do we always do? It's like when the internet came out, it's not like everyone's jobs got easier. It actually made everything more difficult in some ways, or more complex. But it also, same with like the invention of the calculator or internal combustion engine, things like that. internal combustion engine, you couldn't go more than a few miles in a day without it. Now we can drive cross country, just nonstop. And we don't, it's not like, oh, great, now we don't have to do as much. No, now it opens up the opportunity to do a lot more. And so I'm always trying to think, as the leader of my building, how can I not tell my teachers, hey, great, now look, all this stuff's easy, so now you can do all this extra stuff. No, let's try to actually claw back a little time to take care of yourself. And maybe you won't have to put in as many hours, but I also don't want to fool ourselves into thinking it'll make things easier. It'll make aspects of our jobs easier. And then hopefully we don't just put more on our plate as a result. So we'll see. But each year, isn't it just amazing how each year since LLMs came out in, what was it, like March of 2023, like the conversation we're having right now is very different than what we would have said this time last year. And same with a year from now. Just everything is evolving so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Year? I mean, it's week to week. Like,
yeah,
if we skip a week,
yeah,
my topics to discuss on a podcast changes. Like, I have my ideas on Monday. By Wednesday, something else comes out. Then it's a new topic. So, yeah. It's crazy. It's really insane where technology is going, and I want to give Dr. Graves his respect. When I was a new dad, he was a principal of my daughter's school, and she was that first year of full-blown pandemic. Yeah. And I mean, he really, when he talks about leadership and equity, he really made everybody at the school feel welcomed and comfortable. And like you said, he went to a school that had blue ribbon service that other people didn't experience. I felt like that being at LaSalle as a parent, because my stories of going to school with a pandemic, kindergartner, like, this is my first experience back at CPS since I was in CPS 20 years ago. He really led the school and made everybody feel at ease and comfortable, and came up with the technology that everybody used. Like, they set up Zoom sessions before Zoom was even official. And then they switched it over to Google, but we already had Zoom set up because he led the charge in technology, and he was at the awareness, and he took feedback from the parents. So I just want to give him his credit as being a leader in the educational community and using that awareness of, like, everybody needs access. He definitely made that happen. And I mean, I don't know where I would be if that didn't happen in kindergarten at my first experience at school as an adult, or as a new parent.
Well, thanks for that. That's a crazy time. It's even wild to think about that now with what that time was like. Sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday. Sometimes it feels like it was 20 years ago, and we don't do anything. I mean, so much of what we did during that time, we still do aspects of it, but it just feels like a whole different era, right? Where kids learning from home, and it predates LLMs, but we definitely took advantage of the AI aspects of what we are learning from students while they are learning at home. So, but yeah, it was a wonderful way to get to know one another as well. So,
yeah,
I can believe that. I definitely say on my end, it's almost like 2020 is a hard reset just for society in general. Everything pre-2020, that's the old way. That's how it used to be. Now it's different. A society moves completely differently now. And then you amplify things with including AI, just the LLMs. It's just a totally different society now. So I'm curious, you've worked in a lot of different states and school systems, and what common challenges around equity have you seen, and what kind of creative solutions have really moved the needle for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, for one, at the end of the day, like, kids are kids. Whether you're and I've visited schools in other countries too. I've China, Japan, England recently, Portugal, Mexico. And at the end of the day, kids, especially little kids, come to school happy, right? They're excited. There's also, when you get into like trauma and equity issues, there's some really interesting things that we could talk about of how it affects kids at various ages. I think one thing I see anywhere I've taught is the system isn't designed for everyone to succeed. And so we have to think as educators, well, what do we do about that? And every school I've worked in, that's why we have a grading system, A's, B's, D, C, D, and F, is that it's expected that kids will get a D or an F. Not every kid, not any kid every time, but at least some kids will. And it's just so interesting that in so many other industries, we wouldn't accept failure, right? And even what may look like failure, there's not repercussions. Like if we said to Elon Musk or anybody building rockets, shouldn't focus on him, there's so much controversy around, but if we say, how much is it going to take to build a rocket ship to outer space, and a developer, some private company says $50 billion, and we say, we'll give you $30 billion. That rocket ship's going to blow up. They say they need 50, they need 50. Well, that's one of the pervasive equity issues in education is the system isn't designed for everyone to succeed. It never was. From its outset, it was designed to send some kids to college, some kids to the assembly lines. Back in the day when you could make a good buck working in, here, I'm in Southwest Michigan right now at the moment, and Whirlpool's headquarters are right here in Benton Harbor. And that's one thing I've seen everywhere in the United States, especially, is we are underfunded. We are not thinking about where every child should go to be successful. And there's definitely a reckoning right now. It's an awful reckoning, but it feels necessary that we're not saying everyone should go to college. We're saying everyone should be prepared to go to college, but we want students, families, communities to know all the options. And, trade schools are definitely an option if that's what's going to get you out of school with a good job that has very little debt, but there's so many layers to that I could talk more and more about, but funding is definitely one of them. Just like the quick summary of the kind of issues we see with funding is the key word there is adequacy. And if you think of how schools are funded, if you look at all of the equitable factors, there's an evidence-based model used at the state level. And then within Chicago Public Schools, where I work, we have a formula that's called the Opportunity Index. And when you look at those two things, the adequacy model at the state, the evidence-based funding is saying how much, based on your district's demographics, how much does it cost to educate students in this community versus this one? They look at poverty, they look at immigration status, trauma factors, things like that. So that's how districts should be funded. Schools with more needs getting more funding. And then within Chicago Public Schools, there's a correction formula for that as well, called the Opportunity Index. But we only get about 70% of that equitable funding. We only have about the gap between what research says it takes to educate students in our district, what we actually get. The gap between, we only get about 70% of closing that. So it's not that we're 70% funded. The gap between what we should get and what we get from local and state funding is only closed by 70%. And then on top of that, you read anything in the news about Chicago Public Schools is a whole nother factor. I'm just talking annually. That's the challenge. During the pandemic, we did get enough to be fully adequately funded, but now we're back down to about 70%. So, and I've felt that everywhere I've worked. We're not fancy people, the drinking fountain breaks, you throw a plastic bag over it until the engineer can fix it. We deal with what we can. And then as a result, we're struggling with incremental growth nationally on, any national assessment like the PISA or the NAEP assessment. Those are the two international ones we use. So there's a lot there we can keep talking about, but that's just kind of the gist of it. And having worked in 3 different states and raised in another, I've seen the same issues everywhere.
Yeah. I'm wondering, just quick follow-up, how do you close you said you'll sometimes get 70%. How do you close the gap on that 30% to get to 100?
I think there's a lot more we can be doing, and what we don't want to feel like we're forced to do is be fundraisers. We went to school to be educators, and then I've done a ton of trainings and work beyond that to be a leader of educators now. And I feel like even though I've been a school administrator for 12, 13 years now, I'm still figuring it out, trying to get better. But that's what any other industry would do, right? Is find funding sources. And that's what we're trying to figure out how to do at times. And I think the more we can get better at that, the more opportunity opens up for us. Now, the downside of that is we don't want to feel like we're partially privatized. In some communities, families are maybe middle to upper middle class, and you can do fundraising campaigns and use the connections in certain communities to bring in opportunities. And in a community like mine, we have a lot of poverty and a lot of like newly emigrated families. So they don't have the same type of like social capital necessarily. They're wonderful. And they bring such rich experience. But that is definitely something that I keep thinking about, is how can we leverage, especially here in Chicago. I mean, we're one of the most prosperous, most amazing cities in the world. What more can we be doing to make partnerships with corporations where we're not worried about influence as much as support? And I think we have some wonderful Chicago Public Education Fund, Fry Foundation, these different foundations that help fund public schools. So that helps close that gap by providing opportunities, but there's a lot more that could be done. Revenue at the end of the day.
I love that. Thank you for that. I know that helps somebody else out there as an educator at least be able to look into options in their city, because this is just it's a problem that's not going away and it's not getting better. I'll say we homeschool our kids ever since 2020, ever since the pandemic, and they've tested higher since. They've found other things that they're passionate about because they have extra time to explore those options. So I think that it is also very difficult for other families to be able to be in a position to homeschool. So finding alternatives in the current systems and in and around their city to be able to kind of close that gap on the educator side, I think is really key. So thank you for giving some context on that. Adama, what you got?
Okay. So my question is, what is something that we should think differently about education for the youth? I mean, exactly what Lewis just said about homeschooling. I remember at one point I thought about that, especially after the pandemic, because I've already structured them to be home. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's got to be so hard, like for the teachers, for the principal. Like, I know it has to be hard because now we're dealing with a different type of structure of how parents interact with teachers and everything in education since the pandemic. I remember when I was at when I worked at the doctor's office and the teachers would come in, I'd be like, thank you for serving, because serving our children, because education has changed so much since the pandemic. And then even the technology, even with just how we engage in general. And that's one question. Like, so what's one thing that we should switch our mind frames into thinking, if you could tell everybody? And the other one is, what makes you continue to pursue and stay and be proactive and push for our children? Yeah.
Well, to the first part of that, you think about how schools, the building is a building 24 hours a day, right? So technically that building could be almost like a hospital or other 24-hour places where it could continue to service things 24 hours a day. That's something that a lot of people that are brainstorming what education could look like in the future, that's something that comes up sometimes as well. What if you have different shifts? And when I visited schools in Mexico, that's certainly something they're doing. There's like morning shift of students and afternoon shift of students because the schools are overcrowded. So they don't just overcrowd the schools, they have different shifts. I am not suggesting that at all. I love that in our country, every child is given the opportunity to go to a school nearby. One of the challenges of schools in America these days is when you think about it, in any community in the country, with no exception, schools are one of the places that every family interacts with in some form. Even if you homeschool your children, at some point you rely on a local education agency for something, probably. Not every single person, but even I know with a lot of homeschool families, they may opt into like sports. They may opt into some type of specialized service for their child, or just attending events at a nearby school. And so schools become like churches can sometimes, or hospitals. Think about during the pandemic, it's where we issued vaccines to children, right? Uriah was very involved in that. Shout out to Kat O'Brien, who I know you guys hosted on this podcast recently. She spearheaded that whole campaign when we could first vaccinate young children, and it was incredibly successful. I mean, with those of you on this call wearing glasses, like you may have gotten fitted for your first pair of glasses as a child at a school, because you can bring in free vision services and have some of that paid for with federal funding to get especially low income families a free pair of glasses or two. It's an incredible thing. The challenge with that is that when you put more and more and more and more and more things on the school staff, we're less focused on educating the child, and we're more focused on all of those wraparound services. And so, believe me, in our hearts, we want to do all that. We want to do the vision and hearing screenings. We want to feed them breakfast, lunch, and a snack for after school. We call DCFS if we're worried about abuse happening in a child's life. Like, we do all those things as mandated reporters, right? None of that is what we actually went to school for. Right. And so that's the hard part, is the more and more and more and more and more things that get put on an educator's plate, the harder it is to give your soul and your energy and your brain space to focus on teaching. And mentioning being a homeschool teacher or wherever your child is, like, I have mad respect for anyone that's educating children. Like that's at the end of the day, we're raising the future here. And so I think tying it into AI, one thing I think we always need to keep in mind is AI is never going to replace educators. It's going to replace aspects of education. And this is a whole longer conversation we'll probably get into at some point, but it's not, there's so much that gets missed when you're just using an iPad for those, apps and things of that. Khan Academy, they're all wonderful, but there's that special factor of a teacher with a room full of students or a group of students and watching the interactions and watching how their brains develop. It's not the same as writing code where you make one mistake and it's wrong, you fix that mistake and it's right. Brains, the way we develop, the way we learn anything is so cyclical, it's so complex. The human brain is such a complex thing, and so it takes a lot. So the last part of your question of how do I stay fueled? How do I stay excited about this?
How do you?
The main thing is, I challenge you to walk into a school and just watch the children and not feel inspired. And I tell my own staff that. I say, I don't need to add any stress to your job, any pressure to what you do. Those children walk into your classroom every day. That's all the pressure you need. And in leadership, we talk about this concept of like the pressure cooker. That's the pressure cooker cooking the food right there. I add too much pressure on top of that and it's going to explode. And if we don't have the things that feed our soul and feed our energy, then the pressure's too low and we don't cook the food, right? So I'm always trying to just keep a pulse on the culture at the school and make sure that we have a good vibe of people doing the work. And if I can sense that people are too stressed out, then I jump in. And that's where I get a lot of satisfaction from it too, is supporting the staff so that the staff and me somewhat, but they're doing the most of the work for the students. So that's my summary.
That's beautiful. I love that. That was so intentional. You guys know I'm all about intention. You're so intentional. I love that because you guys are being so impactful, and it's so important to have educators and people who really want to. You guys make a change. You know, I mean, like, you guys are the change, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. That was such a good answer. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
He is the change.
Yeah.
He is the change. He's the reason I'm a part of the council now. He reached out and said, Uriah, can you be a part of the council? Even when I was saying I wasn't going to do it for another few years. When the principal comes to you and say, you need to be a part of it, then it's that says everything, right? So I've been a part of it ever since.
Yeah, and that's a layer of things that that Uriah is talking about. That in Chicago public schools, we have these local school councils, right? And they're like a like almost like a board of education for each school. And so it's an interesting thing. Once again, it can feel like more, right? Because now, before any decision is made, we check in with the council for specifically certain things, hiring, strategic planning, budgeting. But it's very important. Like in my community, whether when I was at LaSalle Language Academy or now at Jordan, whenever something big happens, we just had our discussions in our district about bell schedule changes. And some schools are receiving bell schedule changes, meaning like when the school day starts and ends because of transportation. Well, if that's going to be imposed on us, I need to know what the implication. I mean, it sounds so simple. Like, well, they changed the school day by 15, 30 minutes, whatever, because of transportation. The buses have to run to take certain students, most especially sometimes students with special needs. Well, that can affect a lot of things, right? It can affect my staff with their own childcare needs and their own commuting. But I've got 100 staff members. I've got 500 students. So that's easily, let's say, 300 families. What is that? How is that going to impact families, right? What families might need early drop off because they got to get to work? What families might need a late pickup time because they're still at work? How do I navigate all that? And having a local school council is a great place to start. I can put out a poll for all 300 families, but when I need like a focus group of parents that are more dedicated, have committed their times, and were elected by their peers as other parents, that's who I'm going to first. So Uriah and I could tell stories of the things we were able to accomplish together. And I'm always, reminiscent and proud of that. And that's what I continue to do at this school. But those local school councils are very instrumental in helping make big things happen.
Yeah, I wonder, how do you encourage and develop the leadership amongst the staff? What does that look like?
Yeah, like we were talking about already, about just being passionate and not adding, thinking about the pressure cooker, right?
Mhm.
I always think I get my energy from the job. Like I wake up 7 days a week, 5 a.m, 365 days a year. Like, and if I sleep in, I get mad at myself. Like, oh, I slept in, I could have done something. And it's stuff that, like, I save pet projects for work, especially in the summer now. I save pet projects for the weekend when I can, like, sit, pour a cup of coffee. The world is still asleep. I'm up and I'm just plugging away at some like thought experiment on like student interventions. When students struggle academically, what small group or individualized support do you provide them? That's like my big project this summer. We have a process, but it wasn't really working as well as it could. So we took a lot of feedback and I'm working on it now. Okay. But I say all that because that's what I look for in my staff too. I think if we're doing things just in our life in general, if we're doing things that don't energize us. Sometimes we call it like filling our buckets. That's a term we use with students sometimes too. You want to fill other people's buckets. If we're not doing that, then we feel drained at the end of the day. But how is it that I hope you guys as well. I mean, heck, after this recording, I'm going to feel more energized than I did before this podcast, because I'm engaging with you all in a lively discussion and I'm enjoying it and we're all having a good time. So I leave this call going, wow, I feel good about this. I feel inspired about that. That's how I want my staff to feel all the time. So I look for things with them. We call it like formal and informal leadership, right? Like presidents and senators and governors, whether it's Obama, Pritzker, whoever, they are elected leaders, right? They're formal leaders. Well, the formal leaders in the building are the principal, the assistant principal, and other people that are deputized for certain tasks, maybe. But then there's the informal leaders. The informal leaders are the most powerful people in history, right? They're the Gandhis, the MLK, Malcolm X, Greta Thunberg, people that are leading the charge. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Zohran Mamdani, the new mayoral candidate in New York City. Those people, inspiring people, they don't necessarily have, some of them are elected officials, but some of them aren't. And they're just galvanizing the public. And that's what I look at my staff. Who's going to be a coach? Who's going to be a mentor? Who's going to lead a committee? And someone saw that in me at some point, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I think you should try this. Or I said, hey, I'd like an opportunity for that. And so I always try to think, if I can pay it forward, then kids benefit and staff benefit, because they feel like someone has their back, someone's looking out for them, someone's supporting their development just by working with each other. So it's a more of an art than a science, I think, at times, just trying to figure it all out.
I believe that.
He has the art down. He has the art down.
I try. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you.
Sorry.
He has the art down.
Sorry.
Chris, I'm not even used to calling him Chris. I'm used to calling him Mr. Graves, because he's the principal at the school, and now Dr. Graves.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the. I mean, he has it. When I think about leadership, he really taught me about what it takes to lead a community, because it's different, and he leads a community with a lot of diverse skill sets. And when I say diverse, I don't just mean race. I just mean diverse as far as who are your stakeholders. It's not just the teachers who has a union and you don't have control over. It's not the kids who are just kids that you don't have control over. It's not the parents who are super emotional that you don't have control over. It's not the community residents that's your neighbors that you don't have control over. It's all of that. It's really taught me like what leadership really is, because it's not just leadership in your framework, it's leaders of the community, and you don't always have control over that community, right? And that's what I really learned a lot from Chris, Dr. Graves. That's what I learned, is that, because I didn't even think I was a leader, because I was like, I just got here, I'm not here. And you tapped me on the shoulder, like, hey, no, you could help. You asked really good questions. And I was like, I just got here. I don't know. Like, I don't know what I don't know what I don't know, right? But Chris really helped me understand, like, the leader in my community of my community, like the parent community. So there's a parent community, there's a teacher community, there's the school community, and the principal is the puppet master of all of them, right? So it really opened my eyes to the school system and how to just be a leader. And that's what I really take away from my experience with Mr. Graves, and especially what he just talked about with just AI and learning, and what is it going to be? Like, is it going to be plagiarism? Or does plagiarism even matter anymore? Is it going to be harder for people? Or is it going to be easier for people? Like, think about it. Like, now that everybody can write a good sentence, a good paragraph, now that's going to be expected. Like
Yeah,
now it's just going to be
yeah,
expected
yeah.
for you to write a perfect memo every time. Like, why can't you write a perfect memo? Like, if your memo is not perfect, you why? Like, either you have to make it perfect, or you better be using ChatGPT to make it perfect. So that's just gonna increase the expectations on everybody, right? Like in every profession. Like I just said memo because we all know about writing an email and what that takes, but think about every profession where AI makes an influence in making it easier is going to make that job harder because it's going to the level of expectation of making that better is going to be imposed on that performer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a leadership lens, I think about how I feel like I don't have to, but I intend to always stay one step ahead of the curve of what is possible with AI in the classroom and in schools in general, just either educationally and operationally. Because, yeah, when you're leading people in anything, right? There's leading and there's I don't want to say following, like I'm at the front of the parade and people are following me, but like sometimes the leading is leading from within, leading from behind, leading from wherever. And that's what I keep thinking is I don't want our school to fall behind. I don't want our students to fall behind because others are taking advantage of opportunities that are beneficial to our students. So one obvious thing in our school that AI is able to assist is, and so I'm constantly tinkering with so I can support our staff in leading the way just in general, is translation. I at my school we have over 30 languages spoken. And I always challenge people, like, when you start thinking of how many languages can you even name off the top of your head? I couldn't name, I don't know, Oh, and if you remove the normal European languages, like our students don't really speak those. We have a few that speak French because they're Francophile African families. So they know French because it's one of the many languages they speak. Spanish because we have a lot of Latin American families. But beyond that, it's a lot of Middle Eastern languages, Arabic, Pashto, Persian, but Kinyarwanda, Ewe, languages like that, they're fascinating. Well, of course, technology can help with that, right? It can help translate the reading materials for students. It can help translate conversations. And ChatGPT does an increasingly better job every couple of months, I notice, helping translate conversations and also helping teach us another language in a more natural way. It doesn't feel as robotic anymore. Now, when I'm talking with ChatGPT, they're like, they have some of the nuances of our language, like we do with one another, like when I'm adding likes and ums to my language. But of course, then there's also privacy concerns, which is a whole nother aspect of that that we have to be careful with in schools. So there's a lot.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
No, I met how I said that. I was like, I have a question, guys. Okay. Is there a risk of teachers becoming too dependent on AI tools for content? Do you think? Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's maybe someone could describe this and you could Google it or ask ChatGPT and find it. But I know there's this learning curve that occurs naturally in anything, right? And there's a principle around it, principle, right? Where we don't know something, and then once we try to immerse ourselves in just some foundational knowledge of something, we become overconfident on it. And that's where I worry that kicks in, is we learn a little bit about AI and we think, oh, great, now I know how to use this. Well, hallucinations, right? That's the obvious example. If we ask ChatGPT, or we use Google, so we're forced to stick with Gemini for most of our LLM needs. If we just ask Gemini a question or ChatGPT, there's a very good chance we're going to get a wrong answer, right? Or wrong aspects of an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we have to be very careful about how we use AI, because it doesn't replace the human, right? If it gives you data, you still have to question that data and decipher that data. There's a lot of precision that comes with data. If it's saying 51%, is that 51 percent of my students? Is it 51% of the students improved? What is the exact data point it's telling you? We have to be precise with that, because the AI isn't necessarily going to tell you, right? And then when we're using these tools, how do we use them effectively? One thing I always try to do when I'm doing something with AI, like I've built some custom GPTs. We have an annual leadership conference this summer, and I'm helping I helped prepare a presentation that others are presenting. They did 90% of the work, and I helped give feedback on it. And I'm also presenting on the topic of chronic absenteeism. But when I'm teaching people to use the tools that I've crafted, I show them it, but I also always have a how-to guide. How-to guide, because, prompting is part of it. Understanding if you've used Notebook LM. Notebook LM is a tool designed by Google, and you can feed it the foundational knowledge you want your GPT to be searching. So it's not scraping the internet. It's using it like a closed loop LLM, right? Now, the downside is it's biased based on what you put in there. The upside is it's like we've always done in education, where you can say, here's the textbook, and you have to find your answers from within the textbook. Now we're just expanding that concept, that the textbook now becomes any source material you feed Notebook LM. And then anything students do to interact with the LLM is based within Notebook LM, not just across the internet where it's going to have all sorts of hallucinations. So that's
I wish he could repeat that whole plate of food that he just gave, guys. He said so much. He said prompting. He said, he said so much in that. So have you come across teachers who may be intimidated by or unsure about AI and the planning, and like just even by the notebook that you just said? Have you how do you help them? Or because I know a lot of people are intimidated by just that alone.
Yeah, well, we're at an interesting place right now that some of the tools I'm using with Google's AI suite are not available to everyone in the district. I'm on a coalition of AI users that are the pioneers for the district, and the people chairing the coalition are awesome. And I'm on this central team where we got some advanced access, where now we can see, here's how aspects of Google's AI infrastructure will summarize a Google Meet into a document. So tomorrow I have a Google Meet or a meeting with my teachers in person. Well, I'm going to set up the Google Meet and just hit record just to capture the audio of the room, and then it'll summarize a document of notes from that meeting. And because it's within Google's ecosystem, we can talk about anything. If I were using ChatGPT or Otter.ai or one of those, it would not be allowed, because if we start talking about sensitive student information at some point, it may not be approved through the Student Online Privacy and Protection Act, we call SOPA. So we have to be very careful. And our legal department has done a great job of saying, no, don't use all that fancy stuff, because what if and you guys were talking about that on a podcast recently, right? When we get our identities hacked, passwords hacked, things like that, we have to be really careful with that. Our legal department is very careful. I have 100 and some people that work in my building. And as you can imagine, there's the entire spectrum of people who have a lot of hesitations or a lot of misinformation that they've been fed, and wonderful people, but they're thinking, I'm fine with the way I do my job. And then I've got super users on the other end of the spectrum that are the ones leading professional development. And the best way that I don't say like I'm taking credit for it, but that our staff have helped one another increase their usage of AI is when it solves a problem for them. So, one example, teachers have to plan their units and their lessons, right? The unit is like several weeks of instruction. The lesson is probably just for that day or for a portion of that day. And there's a lot that goes into that. And so if we're telling teachers, hey, here are your standards, your standards, and you have to develop a unit plan or a lesson plan. Teachers have some autonomy in how they do that, but we as administrators say, well, it has to include this, that, and the other. These are the aspects. Well, why wouldn't you use ChatGPT to generate some of the ideas for that? Even if it's a lesson you've done a number of times before, any teacher will tell you, on any given year as a teacher, I'm teaching hundreds of lessons, and none of them go 100% according to plan. Some go better than I thought they would. Some go way worse, and I go, geez, well, that was a waste. Like, it's an art and a science teaching. But if I can have a thought partner that can just rapidly help me think of ideas, here's my lesson. Give me 5 ways to get students to engage with one another during this lesson. Boom, right? Like, that's a prompt right there. And that solves a problem for teachers who are like, well, what could I do? What could I do? Get yourself 5 or 10 ideas and then pick one of them, or use that and go, I don't like any of these, but it made me think of this. That's the kind of stuff that really hooks people, where they go, oh, that was always so stressful. Just like we do with generating email drafts. Like, why wouldn't you, right? It definitely takes some of the cognitive load off so we can focus on other things.
That's good. I like that. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's what I love. Making my job easier.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I want to kind of shift gears. We've done a lot of tech talk. So outside of school, I hear you love hanging out with your dogs. And I heard you say pre-show, hey, once this summer, you kind of get a little vacation in. How do you recharge and stay grounded as a leader?
Yeah, it's something I grapple with, because I already mentioned I wake up and I'm excited to do this work, but I'm constantly grappling with that concept of, like, your job can't be your entire identity, right? Because that's just not healthy. And so that's something I think of is my wife and I have our hobbies of, we don't have kids, but like I said, I got 500 kids at school. That's my love for children. But we have a family place in Southwest Michigan that we come to a lot, and we do a lot of work here. So that's part of it, is just feeling the sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. Then being able to light a campfire in the evening and just sit out back and see the stars, which is harder to do in a big city. But also fostering dogs. We have 2 of our own dogs, and then we have a foster dog at different times. And so just trying to raise, I think we finally, knock on wood, helped break this dog of having accidents in the house. So, like, that type of thing brings us a lot of joy. And then we send her on to a forever family, and it's bittersweet. But then, within a couple of weeks, we probably end up having another dog. And beyond that, I'm a sports lover. So, for example, right now at this moment, the Detroit Tigers are playing in Detroit, my hometown team. Tarek Skubal is arguably the best pitcher in baseball. He's pitching right now. So after we're done with this call, I'm going to go put the game on and watch how these guys do in the last night before the All-Star break. So,
I just watched your face brighten up when you talked about that. So I can tell you're ready to get to that game. That's what's up. No, thank you. Because I think that it's important to have balance, and it's really difficult a lot of times to find ways to stay balanced consistently. I know that in-house, we kind of talk about creator burnout, but I'm sure that there's a version of that for a leader of a school. So hearing ways that you're able to handle and manage that and keep a sustainable balance, I think, is really helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll add 1 or 2 quick things. I think, and this transcends a lot of work, because I've taught or led a what would you call it? Professional development core session at our summer leadership in prior years, where I talk about tips and tricks, like time-saving tips and tricks. And I talk about, like, I have an out-of-office responder. So if you send me an email, you'll get my out-of-office response. And I always joke, like, I don't always abide by it, but it does set boundaries. It absolutely does. It tells people, hey, I'll get back to, or the person who is best prepared to respond to you will respond. Because that's something that people think about is, as a principal, people come to me naturally because they know the school has a principal, and they kind of think sometimes a principal is like either the problem solver or the middle of the funnel. Well, sure, it's true. I'm the middle of that funnel. All the parents are here and what you need might be down here somewhere. But very rarely do you need me. You might have a clerical question that goes to my clerk. You might have a question about special education that goes to the case manager. You have a question about your child's classroom that goes to your child's teacher. You have a question about a disciplinary matter that goes to our disciplinarian. And I will get involved, and I always will. But if everyone comes through me, I won't be able to get anything else done. If I empower the people who readily have those answers, they feel better about it because I'm not micromanaging them. I trust them to do those things. And it carves out time for me to help discretionarily decide what I work on. And then at some point, sleep and relax and not do work more than 67 hours a week. So there's like the compartmentalization, the boundaries, things like that are things that I think about a lot. And when I see administrator friends and like in any industry where your inbox is however many, pages of emails, my inbox is, I never go to bed with more than 5 emails in my inbox. I'm very organized with everything. And I've just developed systems to keep things manageable so I don't feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like the work is getting away from me. I can, build these structures to follow through on the things that I say I will.
Well, you touched on everything that and we're literally going to talk about productivity and time management next week. And now you just hit everything. You hit everything.
Oh, I feel so guilty right now. Like,
wait.
He said
Chris
5.
is also a workaholic. And when he said he doesn't sleep, he does not sleep.
Yeah.
He actually works all the time. And I'm really just proud to hear that he's saying that because like the fact that I told you I felt comfortable with him because I saw all the emails coming out and he responded to all the emails immediately. And it was like, it was good for me, but at the same time, it definitely had to take a toll on him because he was responding to him like, Chris doesn't sleep. Chris eats, lives, and dreams this job. He is the man for the job and he does it. And I'm really just proud to hear that he's having healthy boundaries because he does not take breaks. He's a workaholic. He's just like us. We don't we always talk about that all the time. Like all of us have like ADHD, but we also have OCD as far as getting the job done.
Yeah.
Like we all share that commonality as like getting the job done, and as opposed to not getting the job done, that just doesn't happen. Like none of us sleep. None of us sleep. All of us like are very passionate. So you saying that you're like you're in the pack.
Yeah. Welcome to us.
It's hard to turn it off.
It's hard. You can't.
We try.
When you're good at what you're doing, you can't turn it off.
When you're passionate about it, right? When you love it.
Uh-huh.
So.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Don't say that. I believe there's hope.
Well, and that's so next week, whoever's here this week, you're gonna have to come back next week because we're gonna talk about time management and productivity. And like I know for me, I balance a lot and like you, I'm a workaholic. I am also up at 5 a.m. every single day, 7 days a week, 365. So I'm with you. You text me if you're up.
Let's check on each other. How are you?
You're right.
Yeah.
But no, it's hard to turn it off, especially when you're passionate about it. And I'll speak to, I do a lot of creative AI and I teach around that. And it's hard to turn it off because like we open with the show, there's new stuff every week. It's something I talked about last week is going to be outdated by Friday because there's something that's happened the Monday through the Friday. So I can't turn it off to some degree. I go to sleep thinking about, okay, how do I do this a little bit differently? Maybe I put it in this way and I get a different result. Maybe I tell the camera to go this way and I'll get the right footage that I want. Just I can't turn it off. So hearing that there are others like me that have built those same systems to make it a seamless process is really encouraging. So that, maybe I won't be working 60-hour work weeks also. You give me hope. You give me hope.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if, I know we're coming up on an hour. I wonder if you can, I know you said you're on summer break. What do you look forward to during the summer when you're off? Are there repetitive things every year that you just, hey, this is tradition for my summer? What's that thing for you every summer?
Yeah, well, there's a couple, and I'll try to pause on the work stuff. I mean, there's annual projects,
not work stuff.
Yeah, there's hiring, there's budget stuff, all that. But no, the two big ones I'll point out. One of my niece's birthday is 4th of July, so doesn't happen every year. Yeah. We see them, multiple times a year. It's family, but they live in Detroit. We live in Chicago, and this cottage that I'm at right now is about halfway between. So it's nice. They're going to be here in a couple of days, and it's nice when schedules work out, get them out here. So I've got, like, my nieces and nephews don't even know yet. I've got all sorts of fun things to do with them. We got radio controlled cars to race around the backyard, some like big lawn games. We'll go to the beach. One of my nephews loves to build things. So we got radio controlled cars and then kits to build radio controlled cars. So we're going to just have the time of our lives doing all sorts of stuff like that. The other big one is, speaking of sports, like I mentioned, my father and I do an annual baseball trip every summer. And we have for, I don't know, over the past 10, 15 years or so. So we have done, if you're a baseball lover, we've done all the things. We've gone to the Field of Dreams in Iowa. We've done the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. We've done the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. We're going back there this summer to see Dave Parker. Rest his soul, just passed away yesterday, but he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in December. So is one of my father's favorite players growing up, going to watch that induction ceremony. But that's the big one, is every summer I get to go with him somewhere, and just, we debate the heck out of any topic and talk politics, talk sports, talk anything on this, 3 or 4 day road trip we do. And it's just, one of the best things I always like to do.
I love that. Oh, I love
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is. That's what summer looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be the first person to leave me speechless. Wow. That was good. That was really good. I love that. I wonder if you can close this out. If you have any links or anything that you would like to talk about, I'm going to give you the floor to close us out. I know Jen's got your link. She'll drop it up for you, but this has been a real pleasure. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about anything you got going on.
Well, sure. Well, first I'll pause and say thank you to all of you. With the title being Leading with Impact, I always think of how leadership is, it can be defined so many different ways, right? There's leaders who lead people, but there's also leading within your field, right? Think of the pandemic. We had leaders within the LaSalle community who were experts on ventilation sciences, and leaders on all the medical things that we needed to know. So that was something that they may be the only person that does what they do in their company, and they're a leader because they have knowledge that helps other people, right? And so that's one thing I look at with all three of you, is leaders in many different ways, leading people at times, but leading with the knowledge you have. And so thank you for what you do, putting this podcast and all of your knowledge out there. Yeah. And it's great hanging with you all and listening to the type of work you do with the podcast and just all your social media work. things that I'll leave as resources. So I have a website, gravesdi.com. It's where you can see links to my Substack. You can get in touch with me, Graves DI for Graves Data Impact. And it's where I've just always felt I've got so much going on like you all do, and I want to put it out there. I got to go to England in November as part of a Fulbright experience. It was a fascinating learning experience visiting schools in London and Birmingham. And then I came back with just so much I had learned. So I spent the next few months just putting content out that you can see. If you go back on my LinkedIn page or go to Graves DI, you can see all the posts there through Substack. Of all the, how is special education handled? How is new teacher orientations handled? How is assessments done and all that? So I put that out there. I don't get anything extra from it. It's just, I learned all this, and that knowledge should not live with me. It should be out there for everyone. Now, that being said, I do teach a couple courses at the state level for school leaders, and I do a lot of consulting work just in different ways. So if anyone's ever interested in continuing this conversation and wanting to do work together, one, I have a school with 500 children, and whatever expertise you have is probably beneficial to children. Even if it's just a career day and you come in and talk about the work you do, but beyond that, whatever it is you bring up that you do, I can almost guarantee I've got a tie-in for how we could use that at our school or in our schools in general. If not me, maybe somewhere else. So that's the type of thing I always look forward to. Is I'd love to continue the conversation over a coffee, a beer, while we're driving to and from work or running errands, and just collaborate and help think differently about the issues we face in our different spaces.
I love that. On behalf of the team, I just want to say thank you for coming today to talk with us about all the different things. I definitely learned a lot. I got a page full of notes over here as usual. I always ask this of our guests. It's a question that I always ask. Maybe 6 months from now, you're going to be in school. So maybe over winter break, what do you think about coming back and having a quick conversation, a follow-up conversation?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I'd love to see any of the things we're talking about, but especially AI, where will we be then? I like to think our district will have rolled out some of the AI opportunities that I've gotten an early preview on. And look at this government that we have right now. The fact that they're dysregulating everything creates a lot of opportunity, but it also creates a lot of chaos. And I know at LaSalle, at the school where Uriah's kids go, there's an attorney I know who's an AI attorney, and that's his expertise. And he's just, he's overwhelmed with the amount of opportunity that he has to make an impact as well. So, so things like that is definitely what I would love to continue to talk about again.
If there's anything that we can do to help, definitely reach out. Uriah knows how to get a hold of us and put us all together. I would love to be able to help. Maybe expand some kind of curriculum to be able to help at the school level, at the K-5 level. I think it's really going to be critical to catch kids at the beginning, especially with regard to how to ethically use AI. Especially, I'm on the more creative side, but in general, I think it's going to be important to try and get that implemented. So definitely, if you need anything, reach out.
Well, the creative side is definitely something to think about too. My wife's an artist, and just the way that I wrote about it some online, the way that AI is affecting the arts is interesting. There's a lot of opportunity. It's not going to be banned. Adobe has used AI for years to help, clean up images and things like that. But when people use like a Studio Ghibli filter to make yourself look like you're out of one of those anime movies, like that's just blatant theft. Right. So I don't mess around with that kind of stuff. But there's all sorts of implications. I found an AI band that's got 300 some thousand followers on Spotify today, and I'm like, this is all fake. This is interesting.
You know, my wife just made a dino chicken nugget song that was actually pretty hot. Dino nugget anthem. I'm like, yo, it's yeah, we're gonna have to have a follow. We'll keep going for a whole nother hour. I did that last week. I gotta keep it tight this week. So we definitely have to have
he's a musician too, because you forgot he said he's a music teacher first.
And you're talking about everything I love: art, Adobe, creative. I'm trying to keep tight lip over
I know, right? So we definitely gotta have a part 2.
It's hard.
Let's see where that's gone. That'll be a wild growth. 6 months from now is what is the generational side of the arts and AI.
I'm not going to start. Let me just stop.
I'm coming to you next.
I'm trying to put myself in time out, yo. I'm really, because now
you
going into a deeper tunnel.
Tell them where they can find you, Adama.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I had to put that back in. Okay. If you would like for me to tap into your creativity, allow me to plug in right here. Our awesome producer put it up there on Linktree. This is where you can reach me. I help folks. I tap into that creative fog that you're feeling to expand more on your visual part for us to handle art responsibly. Wink, wink. Yeah. Seriously, responsibly, and be very creative with it as well. So you can reach me right there, and I do 101s, and I'm willing. I'm here for you. That's where you can reach me. I'm on all social platforms.
Yay, Mr. Uriah.
On the counterpart, if you want to get your business developed, you can hit me up. You can see the linked app for all of my past work, but also just if you want to hit me up, Facebook, LinkedIn, Uriah Muhammad. That's where you can hit me up if you want business development or creative development. Either or, hit me up, let me know.
Awesome. This has been a great episode. My name is Louis Marshall. I am the host over here at Leadership Lounge Live. One quick update real fast. I just started over the last 48 hours a Leadership Lounge network page on Facebook. I sent you all invites yesterday. Please, please, please make sure to tap in and follow that page. That's where our clips are going to be distributed going forward so that everything is nice, clean, and you can find all the clips all day, every day, so that there's no confusion on where to find it. In tandem, Uriah is going to be off next week, but Miss Adama and I got something surprise scheduled for you. So set your alarms this week, today, as soon as you get done, for next Sunday, because we're going to talk about a very, very, very important topic that I think is going to be really helpful for the creators. So, my name is Louis Marshall. I am the airbrush and AI artist over here at Marshall Artistry. This is the home of the prompt packs. If you're looking for help in terms of prompt engineering, if you're looking for help in terms of cinematic training guides for your AI videos, we've got you covered. The link is down below. I appreciate everybody for being with us this Sunday. A special thank you to Dr. Chris Graves for gracing us this afternoon/evening. And I want to say thank you to the audience for always being supportive and tapping in every Sunday. I look forward to seeing all of you next week. I love y'all. We'll see you again next Sunday. Peace, y'all.
Welcome to the leadership. The leadership.